So in this video, we're going to look at case control studies and cohort studies and sort of the differences between the two, and then talking about what we can calculate from them. So looking at case control studies first, what we're doing is that we're comparing a group of people with condition versus those that don't have it, and it's only retrospective, i.e. there's someone sat there with a question interviewing the patient or the control group and expecting them to sort of look back in the past for this. And so they're expected to recall events, and that can be a bit of a problem. But let's have a talk through these actual. So the advantages for them is really cheap when compared to other types of studies, because think all you're doing is you're paying an interviewer, that patient, for their time on that day and that day alone, and then you're analysing all the results. Okay, so it's not a prolonged study, hasn't got a big amount of time to it, and you can keep it relatively small. And if people have got rare diseases, you can identify them, quiz them, and then sort of be really useful from that way. It's really good to sort of start things off, if you're not sure on a certain question, to really get things going. Disadvantages: loads of confounding risks. It's very difficult to sort of reduce down those risks, and a huge amount of recall bias. Do you remember what you did yesterday? Do you remember what you had for lunch? It's very, very tricky. And again, causation is unlikely to be proven, but you're just building up that evidence. And again, the control groups can be difficult to get because of all these other factors going on. To try and truly get a decent control group, just something to think about there. So from a case control study, you can work out the odds ratio. Okay, and that's the ratio of those, say, who've exposed to something, who have the disease, versus those who haven't been exposed. And again, we work out this ratio, and it's sort of classically done as A divided by C, divided by B, divided by D, and I'll show you what I mean by that. It's all to do with this table, and just be mindful of this is what we're talking about there. So on the left-hand side, you can see it's split into exposure and no exposure, and then you've got disease present, disease absent. In the disease present column, you've got the A and the C, hence where you get the ratio there between exposed and then disease being absent, and B divided by D. And so when you're faced with this question, go through it in that logical order, okay? So it'll often present saying so many people with this illness will have been exposed to this and not exposed, so work out that ratio, and then again they'll give you the corresponding information for those who haven't had the illness. Get those two numbers and then divide them by each other. You can do some crazy maths, but don't. You'll just get yourself confused, certainly in an exam situation, so just do it that way. Keep it simple. So moving on, let's have a look at this. So ratio of 1, again, similar with other studies, means that there's no association, okay? Less than 1 being protective, and less than 1 there's an increased risk. So for example, let's have a look at this. A study looks at smoking heart disease. The odds ratio comes out as 3. Okay, so that either means one or two things, and it's that nuance of statistics. Either the odds that someone with heart disease being a smoker is 3 times as higher than those without heart disease, or the odds of someone who smokes as having heart disease is 3 times greater than those who don't smoke. So it's just that real sort of horrible statistical twisting, okay, and hence why these studies aren't always brilliant from that aspect. So again, just to really sort of nail this down, if it's less than 1, it's protective. So think again, similar things: exercise, smoking, new drug, the good effects that we want, or certain food groups, think like your antioxidants. And then the risks: radiation exposure, smoking, new drugs with the bad effects for food groups. Everyone bangs on about red meat as an example. So let's use an example based on sausages, because I love sausages. From that way, so public concern was raised about barbecue-style sausages causing an increase in bowel cancer when a local barbecue celebrity was diagnosed with the condition. Case control study was conducted to try and work out the odds for this. Out of 110 people who had eaten the sausages, only 10 had developed cancer. Okay, so that's showing an exposure rate. This was compared with 300 people who had not eaten the cancers, of whom 100 developed cancer. Okay, so sort of like, what is the odds ratio? So let's sort of take one bit at a time. So we've got 110 people eaten and only 10 had developed cancer. So we've got eaten sausages, bowel cancer, not had bowel cancer. Okay, public concern was raised. 300 people who not eaten, of whom 100 developed cancer. So we can get the bottom number as well. Again, just read the question. So it's 300 in total. We know 100 had developed cancer. So it's not 300 in the no bowel cancer. It's 200. 300 minus the 100. Once we've got the table, we can then work out our odds ratio. So A divided by C, so the bowel cancer column, divided by B divided by D. Okay, so 10 divided by 100, divided by 100, divided by 200, 0.1 divided by 0.5. which equals 0.2 or 20%. Okay, so in actual fact, it's sort of the odds are much lower if you've been exposed because it's less than 1, so it's deemed protective. As you can see, the numbers are all a bit weird and a bit wrong. It's just for to put you through this, okay? And again, as with this, statistically it's very poor, need more research. So looking at cohort studies, okay, so we're going to look at a group of people and we're going to go forward in a period of time, okay? So we can take a series of people and see if they've been exposed to things or just watch them, and it's a longitudinal study. So you're looking in an exam question, something where they're being looked at and followed up multiple times. The Framling and Hart study is a really good idea for this. There's high risk of confounding as no one's really put into different groups. You're just sort of following them up and seeing how they're going from that way. So again, advantages, it's cheaper than an RCT because you've got, again, a smaller team, and you can start to eke out some causal relationship, and you might be able to pick up some really rare risk factors because you can then pick your people that you want. And you can potentially get multiple outcomes that you weren't originally expecting from this, which can be really, really useful. Disadvantages, it's not randomized or blinded, so you really need a large cohort to get sort of like some good data out of this. And causality will likely require further studies. Again, causation does not, or correlation does not equal causation. So sort of like just because you notice two things happening together, does it make sense from a genetic point of view, biological point of view, medicinal point of view? Just don't know. And it's really not useful for rare diseases, and it can be time consuming to get all that useful data because you really need a large sample size, and there are huge amounts of confounding factors, again because you can't randomize, stratify very easily from that aspect. And it's likely as well patients will get annoyed because you're expecting them to sort of be followed up every so often. And so that will cause them to drop out, not turn up, not engage. And so you need a large group to start off with the acknowledgement that not all of them are going to make it through to the end. So with cohort studies, you can work out relative risk, which is effectively your exposure event rate divided by your control event rate. Okay, so let's sort of have a look at this. So it's your exposure rate, so it's A divided by A plus B, so exposed, not exposed, and you're going across the top from that point of view, okay? So then your control event rate for those who've not been exposed across the bottom, so C divided by C plus D, all across the way. So we're having a look at this one, so smokers and non-smokers, getting lung cancer and not getting lung cancer. These are made up numbers, just bear that in mind. Okay, so the exposure rate is 25 divided by 100, so we could do the 25 plus 75 to get the 100, equals 0.25. Control event rate, 1 divided by 100, so we got the 1 plus the 99 equals 0.01. Then all we're going to do is do 0.25 divided by 0.01 is 25, so a huge relative risk. Okay, so it's 25 times greater chance of developing lung cancers in smokers than non-smokers. It's easy to get confused with the table and sort of like thinking, oh, which one I'm going to do? A stupid thing that I picked up, case control, second to last has an O, so you can get an odds ratio, cohort got an R, so relative risk. Hope that helps. Cute picture of a dog just to help, not my dog, by the way. So, hope that helps. If you're reading about studies, there's a really good video that I did on meta-analysis, and then I've just done one on RCTs as well. I hope both of those help with regards to your AKT revision. Please feel free to share this video, and good luck to you.